For a more nuanced take on cannabis genetics than the indica versus sativa thing, let's look to the textbook by Clark and Merlin, Cannabis Evolution Ethnobotany. They also have a great look at the diffusion of cannabis across the world that we'll end on. I'm Lex Pelger. I do Canna education for CV Sciences, the makers of Plus CBD. On cannabis, ask me anything. This textbook is about 10 years old, and it's still as up to date as you need because there have not been any major sea changes in this world. It also has a great folk history of cannabis, both in Europe and in Asia, that has just a bunch of delightful anecdotes. But they also talk a lot about the debates of what we know about cannabis and what we don't know. The genetic pools they're using are based on Hillig 2005, if you want to go look that up. And this isn't as complicated as it seems. You have a putative ancestor of cannabis up here that they call Cannabis ruderalis. This is now extinct. It was probably in Central Asia. That's our best guess, but no one will ever be sure where this plant first came from now. And the guesses go all across Eurasia, but Central Asian mountains are the best guess we have. So they say there is a putative hemp ancestor that they would call proto-sativa and a putative drug ancestor called proto-indica. Putative means guess, basically. And from that, you got the narrow leaf hemp ancestor, the narrow leaf drug ancestor, sativa and indica, and then potentially a broadleaf drug ancestor. And what this breaks down to today is actually a nice set of 4. Narrow leaf hemp. That is the hemp fiber of Europe. Then you have narrow leaf drug. That is the ganja of India, and the longest continual religious use of this plant in the world would be these NLD cultivars, narrow leaf drug. Then the broadleaf hemp, which is the East Asian hemp, which is incredibly important for the rituals and religions of China and Korea and Japan. Really fascinating reading in here. Then the broadleaf drug, which would be the Central Asian hashish, like the Afghani hashish. So they're talking about 4 different gene pools here, but then from them you get ones that escape from cultivation and all of this crossbreeding introgression. And as some of you point out in the comments, yes, there is still some of this traditional stuff left, either as land races hidden away, or as genetics by certain companies who specialize in genetics. But that stuff is really hard to find, and what most people are getting is now just weed that might be leaning towards sativa or indica. This narrow leaf drug is sativa to growers. This broadleaf drug is indica to growers. And I guess I won't have time to do the map of the spread, but if you want to see that, let me know. Here's the gene pools according to Hillig.